Hello everyone, Scott Farida here, and today we are discussing the political extremism of Karen McDonald because politics has no place in prosecution. So what do I mean by this? Well, from January of 2021, when McDonald's administration began, up until the time I left in June of 2023, there seemed to be a constant focus on the far left side of the political spectrum. And a good way of talking about this is actually to begin with the second office-wide presentation that Karen McDonald ever put on for us attorneys in the office, where she invited an author named Emily Bazelon, who also seemed to be a far-left progressive prosecution advocate, to come in and present. And yes, when I use the words progressive prosecution, what you're thinking of is probably correct. And the feelings that you're having are probably the same ones that us attorneys had, the APAs sitting there listening to this being put on. But there's an important part I want to discuss, and that's when Ms. Bazelon gave shout-outs, for lack of a better term, to prosecutors doing great work. And two of the cities, to my recollection, were LA and San Francisco. Now please, dear viewer, tell me if you think Los Angeles, San Francisco, or frankly any city that has had an extremist progressive prosecutor has handled criminal justice well. And that's not to say that there aren't some far-right prosecutors out there doing an abysmal job, but again, I'm here talking about Karen McDonald's administration. And there was no reason to bring this person in. She wasn't a county employee. I don't recall there being a super special reason or connection she had with the Oakland County Prosecutor's Office that made sense to have her. No, this is simply someone that Karen respected, someone who she thought had such wonderful ideas that we assistant prosecutors just needed to be exposed to them. And it gives you a good insight into her political ideology. This is the type of person she surrounds herself with, the type of person that she wanted to use her position to give a platform to. And this was not a one-off situation. In the office, we had a number of DEI presentations, and I want to focus on one in particular in January of 2022. Now, I know that DEI is a hot-button issue, that diversity, equity, and inclusion invokes strong feelings from both sides of the political aisle, though for very different reasons. But honestly, I don't think either side would have been happy with what went on. It all seemed so surface level. It was basic politicking, paint by numbers, checklist, whatever you want to call it. It was just what is immediately coming to mind. Betsy Hage, Karen's chief of administration that she appointed, and I mean, side note that she created the entire position, but she had a 4-grid quadrant with the giving tree accompanied by an explanation of equity over inequality, the importance of equity, some really generic examples that were not specific to an area. I believe the three that come to mind here were a municipality closing down some community centers, a person having access to computers and printing, and one about a community having a meeting about environmental health and whether or not they should have a translator or a separate meeting to account for people that didn't speak English or something to that effect. Now you might be saying, well, hold on, some of those things I would be interested in or might want to consider. And that's perfectly fine. But the issue is these do not have a direct connection with prosecution, with the work the attorneys were doing. One would think that even if you wanted this type of thing to go on, you would want something more substantive, actual criteria, something related to cases, to crimes, really getting into the meat of the work that prosecutors do. One of the few things that was discussed that actually had a relationship with our work in court was, and I am not kidding about this, a consideration as to whether we should be using the word defendant or whether using the word defendant is dehumanizing. Yeah, if you're hearing sarcasm in my voice, it's because this is the type of thing we were talking about. I don't recall us having a nice big presentation about drug addiction, despite the fact that drug overdose deaths in Michigan are about double all firearm deaths, including the about 50% that are suicides. I don't remember a nice big presentation on mental health issues, specific criteria that APA should be considering, and how we should implement it in policy or anything of that nature. No, instead, we were talking about this type of thing, whether defendant is dehumanizing. And this is not some great, grand, introspective thought. No, it is quite simple. It is not dehumanizing. In both the criminal and civil realm, typically the second person to come to court is the defendant. They're defending against the allegations. Do any of you know someone who has been divorced? If they were not the one who filed the case, then they were almost certainly the defendant. That's it. We're not saying criminal, offender, something that would be offensive, like, oh, that dirtbag or something of that nature, just using the proper noun. And it is by no means exclusive to defendant. I mean, victims. I can't tell you how many defense attorneys I heard say alleged victim or complainant. Even when it was clear they were a victim of a crime, it was a matter of identity. Nope, the complainant. Same thing with attorneys. A lot of times attorneys don't use names of the opposing counsel. I can't tell you how many times I've been called brother counsel or the prosecutor or the assistant prosecutor, whatever derivation that attorney wanted to use. It wasn't some dehumanizing thing, turning me into some faceless government automaton coming in to just hassle people. No, it makes a very clear presentation. But when you're using proper nouns, and frankly, even in transcript, it's very clear what everyone is talking about. You know, you may disagree, but again, this is not some grand theory or something to talk about. You know, the entirety of those type of presentations seem to follow that suit. You know, there was one part where Betsy was talking about the entire system being biased, and you know, my note here from that meeting includes here talking about that systems that were designed to quote reward specific demographics for so long that the system's outcomes may appear unintentional but are actually rooted in discriminatory practices and beliefs. You tell me if that seems like a moderate position, if that seems to be actually a fair, deep analysis of what's gone on in Oakland County, Michigan. And this is the problem. This is the type of thing that Karen McDonald's administration brought to the prosecutor's office. You know, I started this presentation by saying that politics have no place in prosecution. At this point, it's kind of become my tagline or my catchphrase, but it matters. You know, at the end of the day, we deserve better. Karen McDonald is up for re-election. And what is very telling is that all of these things that served as the core of her 4 years in office haven't seemed to really been talked about. I haven't seen an ad where this is discussed. And usually when a politician is distancing themselves from something or trying to sort of brush aside a core part of their ideology, of their administration, it gives you the sense that even they know that their constituents won't be happy about it. So that's why we're discussing this here. There are so many other things we could go over on the same topic, but this video is already over 8 minutes. If you have questions, as always, put them in the comments. If you want to see another video, maybe going over more of these, again, put that in the comments. Subscribe for more, and until next time, I'm Scott Farida, and I appreciate you being here. Thank you.